Hey ladies and gents, I've had the full hands-on experience and have played eFootball 2022 last Tuesday after being invited by Konami, and today I'm going to share with you that experience and a fair amount of information, so please get comfortable. It's important to note that I was playing a newer build than the one that's going to be released on September the 30th, which actually featured sharp kicks. I'm guessing this build will need further testing and quality assurance before it can go live on the PlayStation Network, but that's just my assumption. I took literally no time in grabbing the PS5 controller after the developer finished his presentation. I whacked on the headset with the 3D sound and pressed X to launch eFootball 2022. I was thrown immediately into a match between Argentina and Portugal, Messi versus Ronaldo, and I just sort of sat back and watched the pre-match build up and was actually blown away by the graphical detail, especially the faces as the camera panned across the team for the national anthems. The way the lighting cast off the players' faces looked incredible, and part of me was like, where's the mobile graphics that we saw in the trailers? So let's start with the big talking point, and obviously the concern for most of you, the graphics. And we really didn't need to worry. I played this on the PlayStation 5 and they are so much better than I expected and what we had seen in the trailers. Certainly way above mobile gaming standards. I would probably go as far as to saying or guessing that the trailers featured parts of the mobile game in those trailers, because honestly there's no comparison. The grass when zoomed in or zoomed right in isn't the best, but the same could be said for FIFA 22. I would say that the night games really stood out for me, but the lighting during the day looked good too, with the soft shadows from the stadium. It just meant my eyes didn't have to adjust when the ball went from the sunlight into the shadows. So then Messi gets proceedings underway from the kickoff, and then whoa. The second I kicked the ball, I just could instantly feel a much slower pace to the ball in terms of the ball physics, and also the player movement. I could feel the weightiness and momentum of the players instantly, and this is very important to how this game is going to play out. It's a far more realistic pace to it for sure, but is it going to be to everyone's liking? I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. So whilst the pace of the match was slower than I'm used to, it didn't feel easy to retain possession of the ball. It was really important to work the ball side to side, backwards, to try and draw my opponent out. And before you know it, Messi picks up the ball, plays a perfectly weighted defense splitting pass through to Martinez, and I made no mistake and gave me an early lead. And he headed towards the advertising boardings because I wanted to see the graphical detail of the fans, and as he celebrated with the fans, I was really impressed with the close-up detail of the crowd. It's by far the best in the PES game yet, and I'd be prepared to say it's even better than FIFA's impressive crowd. I should have mentioned this sooner actually, but the atmosphere in the stadium, oh my effing G. I was wearing the PlayStation 5 headset with the surround sound, and there are various options, such as you can select whether you're listening from the stands, whether you're listening from the TV broadcast, and there's some other options too that I can't quite remember. So I went with from the stands sound, and it felt like I was actually there in the crowd. It was insanely good. However, during the 1v1, so I did play one of the other guys, without the headset it does become reliant on the TV sound. Didn't have a soundbar or anything like that, so the atmosphere did fall flat when I wasn't playing it through the headset. But that's not the game's fault, that's just the TV that I was playing on. I was really disappointed in the commentary. It was the overly familiar lines, and it was so prone to error. One example was where I challenged a player for the ball, and the commentator said that I left him in a heap, but he was actually still standing after I took the ball off him. So I quickly raced into a 2-0 lead, this time Martinez feeding Messi, whose cold effort nestled into the bottom corner. But then I started beginning to question the difficulty that I was playing on, because, it was just the opening match. I didn't change any settings or anything. But then Ronaldo waltzed through my defence like nothing and pulled one back for Portugal. And I was like, I am useless at defending. What? I was just bamboozled. Like, what am I doing wrong? The defending felt really difficult. So let me say this now. You're going to need to really relearn how to play this game. Before you moan about the defending, let's cast our mind back to PES 2020. So we had the demo or the beta, and loads of people moaned about the defending, and Konami changed it. All you got to do is hold X to win the ball back, and it sort of rendered the skills useless. I began starting to use the matchup, the physical defending buttons, and the biggest change for me was how how the adaptive feedback worked for the dash without the ball. So you remember in the trailer we saw players skidding past Neymar with the simple turn? Well, that there was me. I was literally going flying past, because it depends how much you press the right trigger, which determines how quickly your player runs. So the faster you run, the harder it is to come to a stop. So if you think that a player is going to cut inside you, you don't want to be running at full pace, which then becomes a battle of wits between the defender and attacker. Do you slow down thinking he's going to cut inside you, or do you go full throttle knowing that he's going to go to the touchline, and then you start thinking about other patterns of play? What did he do the last time he was in the wide area? And then came a wow moment. I literally love this. I played a ball through from Messi to Martinez again. The defender was pressuring from behind, and without even thinking about it, I just pressed the shield button. You know, it's not natural because obviously there's no shield button before. And even though I had the ball, Martinez positioned his body off to the side to protect the ball while still chasing it. Distance between the player and the ball became too much. And then I tried to latch onto the ball, but the keeper came out, rushing out to Martinez's feet to grab the ball. And I just absolutely love that animation. How he positioned his body to protect the ball whilst the ball is still running. So there's this disconnect between the player and the ball. And whilst this risk didn't pay off this time, you just know another time it will, and it's going to feel absolutely glorious when that happens. Needless to say, I literally told everyone in the room about that moment. So something so trivial, but something you wouldn't have seen before in a previous PES. I eventually got the third goal to win my opening match 3-2, and whilst it seemed close on the scoreline, I didn't really find myself challenged by the CPU. I won my next match comfortably 3-0 and found it was set to regular difficulty. So then I upped that to Superstar and then lost 2 on the bounce before I was speaking to a developer, and he asked if I tried to use the sharp kicks, and I gotta admit I completely forgot all about those. You know, I was so focused on the shielding, the physical defending and the matchup to try and improve my defending. And he also pointed out that it's important to play a game like a real football match and use sharp kicks to spread the play, and told me you can perform some wicked shots on goal using these sharp kicks as well. And he was absolutely right, because the halves were only 5 minutes in length, so it's easy to sort of get into the mindset of I've got to get the ball forward quickly and score before it's full time. So you do have to take your time when you are building your attacks and building your play. Adding sharp kicks really improved my arsenal of weaponry going forward. You can use them for everything: low passes, lofted passes, low through balls, high through balls, crosses, shots, everything. And you're notified by the way the bar changes to blue, like a blue colour, just to let you know that you are using a sharp kick. And these are absolutely game changing, because constantly playing 1-2s through the middle isn't going to get you that far in this year's game. So switching the play, taking on risky passes is definitely the best way to open up your opponent, but it also increases the chance you'll turn over the ball. The shooting felt absolutely amazing using the sharp kicks. I came close to scoring a worldie with Wan-Bissaka of all people, with a Van Basten-esque volley from a very acute angle. They feel really rewarding, but hitting the target is definitely much harder than you'd expect. But if one goes in, you're literally going to jump out of your seat. We also spoke about the camera settings, and I shared my dual camera concern, saying that it felt too claustrophobic when you're deep in your own half, and because there's a player nearby, the camera zooms in and it really limits your view, meaning you're going to have to make use of the radar, which I did, but still didn't feel like this was the best camera view for me personally. I launched a match between Barcelona and Juventus at the Camp Nou and switched to a custom stadium cam, and it was simply another wow moment because it looked absolutely stunning. If someone walked past at that moment, they'd be forgiven for thinking it looked like a real football match. If you want to know the settings I used, it was zoom 0, height 4, angle 10. However, I did struggle with this cam as defending definitely requires a closer view. The physical defending button can now be used to apply pressure with the player selected, and the right analog stick can be used to select players. Sadly, there is no secondary player indicator to indicate who you'd select next if you press the cursor select button, although maybe this was turned off in the options, but I didn't see an option for it. There is no secondary player press button, and I actually welcome this change as online matches could be a little bit chaotic, and it is far too common for someone just to hold this down, which would nullify most of the skills. Overall, the dynamic camera Zoom 0 Height 2 was definitely the best camera for me, but I didn't have time to check the other cameras unfortunately. Another thing I really liked, even on Superstar difficulty, is that the AI didn't always read your skill moves. I produced a skill Neymar did in the trailer which looked absolutely incredible, and I also found Superstar difficulty very challenging and won only around 50% of my matches as I was still learning the new controls. Then came the one-on-one with the Konami team members, which is where the game really shone for me, and it was certainly a more realistic game than you typically have between two players. There was no more rhino charge defending, no 1-2 spam down the middle. Both of us tried to play the game as if it was a real football match, and the flow of the game worked really well as the teams moved up and down the pitch. One moment he had me pinned back, and then eventually I was able to push him back. So a real nice ebb and flow to the game. He also showed me how to turn off the circle under the players as well as the targeting aim. So after 2 hours the session ended and they literally had to peel me away from the chair. All of the Konami employees made me feel very welcome, and it was just such a great relaxed atmosphere. So a quick thank you to everyone involved. So it sounds like a decent football game, right? Well, my expectations were so low that everything I saw and played was going to feel good, I guess. But even though it was different, it still maintained that PES DNA. Once you had the controller in your hands, it's more or less still PES. But that's not to say that I didn't witness and experience some frustrations and disappointments, which is what I'm going to cover now. The two big disappointments for me, one was the lack of player ID. This has always been a really big feature of PES in the past, and one of the key reasons that I play PES in the first place. There is definitely some still there, as I've seen Neuer come out to clear his lines playing as a sweeper keeper, but Messi and Ronaldo didn't feel like they moved like Messi and Ronaldo in terms of their arm movement, the way they run with the ball, etc. But you could tell they were the better players just through their stats. The second biggest disappointment was the collision system, or the foul system, which is worrying as this is an aspect they've reworked. I found players crashing through the back of my players, easily winning the ball, and it almost looked like they ghosted through my players sometimes. The developer did say it's still being worked on, so hopefully we'll see some improvements over the coming months. So let's talk about the attacking controls, meaning the controls when I had possession of the ball, the things I liked and disliked. So double tapping the dash button to knock the ball ahead didn't seem to work so well. It might be because I was mistiming it, but it didn't seem to increase my player's run speed at all. I would love a proper knock-on feature where a player can kick the ball out in front of them and then sprint onto it. I also find fast players really hard to catch when dribbling with the ball, whereas in real life there's very few players who can dribble at high speed with the ball close to their feet that are faster than a player sprinting without the ball. Automatic player selection has really improved over PES 2021. I found the right player being selected at the right times, especially from crosses, where it has been a little bit slow in PES 2021. I felt I was able to get the right player at the right time, and also the use of the right analog stick, but there was no secondary player indicator, which would certainly be a nice feature to have in the future. Sliding and standing tackles worked as well as expected. The matchup button, I think I need more practice with this, as I didn't find there all that much use to it, or use for this button other than to jockey and fine tune my player's position. Skills worked responsively and the AI would fall for the tricks and skills performed. The goalkeeper selection, I found this very easy and very responsive to select my goalkeeper, but never really got around to making or attempting any saves, so I can't comment if the goalkeeper will automatically save the ball for you as it did in PES 2021 if you're in the right position. I found goalkeepers a little bit too easy, almost FIFA-esque, like once you're in the penalty box most of my shots would go in, whereas in the past the goalkeepers have been more challenging and difficult to beat. But then again, I don't want goalies saving shots that would normally go in real life, similar to like the new football game open beta where the goalies were just too ridiculously overpowered. So they need to find like a happy medium, but you still want to be able to score long shots from range. So I personally would love to see two difficulties, one for goalkeepers and one for the general team. I think that would allow you to get the best selection, because I think in the past if I had a preference I'd play on legendary difficulty, but the goalkeepers I would probably set down to professional or top player so they didn't concede the longer range strikes. I really liked the seamless play, so no more black screens. So this is where the ball boy will roll the ball into your players and keep it fresh. I also noticed that the goalkeepers, when they throw it out, so if they get a goal kick, they'll throw it out in front of them and it never lands in the same spot, which is a really nice touch. It doesn't make it feel like it's robotic. It does actually feel like they're just throwing the ball out and then kicking upfield. I was disappointed with the replays as they seem to drop really significantly in the frames per second. I found them around 25 to 30 FPS, which was a bit jarring. Hopefully something that can be addressed going forward. I also noticed that the AI had a tendency to cut in from the wide area, which I found difficult to stop, and the turn shot on goal is still there. So this is when they play it into their striker. He does two little movements to turn and then he shoots into the goal, and it's very, very difficult to stop. I was trying to use the sort of 2021 method of trying to get in the way and block shots, but that's even harder in eFootball 2022. So I need to make some adjustments to the game because all I ended up doing was blocking my goalkeeper's line of sight. I like the game plan menu. The form arrows indicate now how much the stats increase and decrease, which is great from a visual point of view. So if you got like an up arrow, it will say +6 or +8 to each of the stats and tells you how much they've improved by. However, I did find the game plan menu a little bit clunky in terms of how fast you could move players around, and it wasn't exactly smooth. I wish all of the options were sort of under one single menu with subheadings, instead of like the cursor and targeting selection being in one menu, then the game plan and cameras and audio being in another menu. If I was to summarize the plus points and negatives, the plus points for me were the graphics, because they were far better than what I expected. The atmosphere honestly blew me away, especially with the PS5 headset making use of the 3D surround sound, especially when I selected the in the stands audio option. The shielding button, absolutely love the new animations. The manual defending, the fact that it actually takes skill to win the ball, which means you can't switch off at any point during the game. Skills, they actually work against the AI even on the high difficulty levels. Sharp kicks, which are an absolute game changer, but these won't be available on September the 30th unfortunately, but will be in the first update. For the negatives, it's the lack of player ID. That's the biggest one for me. Then there comes the collision and foul system. The replay frames per second dips are really, really disappointing. Hopefully they can iron those out before launch. And the commentary, it's the same as before, but even more error prone. So to conclude and wrap this up, I came away actually impressed and wanting more. It was something new, something fresh, which we've not had in 2 years. The graphics were way better than what I was expecting. They're not what I consider next gen. Next gen to me is the UE5 demo, the Unreal 5 demo graphics, but they're certainly top tier AAA Unreal 4 engine graphics. So if you've played the likes of, I don't know, Days Gone or Mortal Kombat, where they're using the Unreal 4 engine, that's how good they look on the PlayStation 5. We're all going to have to relearn this game, and whilst it's not the finished article, I think this is a really good base to build from as they work towards moving to the Unreal 5 engine next year for 2023. I believe we're going to need a lot of patience with this game, especially as what we've seen with the development roadmap. The exclusion of sharp kicks on September the 30th is going to be a bit painful, I'm going to admit. I want everyone to learn how to defend before you start moaning. I do have a spreadsheet which I'll leave in the link at the description of this video, where I rated every aspect of the game that came to mind. It's how I captured my feedback on the way back home on the train. I just want to say thanks for listening if you got this far. Hopefully I provided a balanced and unbiased review or view. You know, I honestly can't wait for the release of this game now, but I also understand we're going to have to be patient with the upgrade or updates to the game. I just want to say a special thanks again to Konami for letting me play test the game, and hopefully you'll find this feedback valuable. Anyway, thanks everyone, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you on tomorrow's Q&A session, so be sure to join me for that. Until then, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye bye.